done.
Okay.
So as with everyone else, the concern of physical space definitely came up at our table. There wasn't so much consensus on exactly what that would be, but we were very inspired by the Dutch model of squatting that worked so well for them for decades as a way of bringing the concerns of Occupy to the community level. Less fear, more love, solutions, not complaints. Move into the education system, as everyone else has said, but don't overemphasize the role that the system can have in inducing change. And as well, make the language of Occupy more accessible and inclusive. So Occupy is just the tip of the iceberg for the 99% movement. Equalization, I think, can be one of the next, or table things can be one of the next big steps. The narrative of Occupy needs to sort of move more towards inclusivity and consider how many years do we have left. We're living unsustainably, and some fundamental changes need to take place before we can go ahead with those first changes.
Thank you. Here's 5, and they're all going to take 20 seconds each.
So what we did was each of us put all of our key ideas on one card, and then we grouped them together and formed 5 themes. Each of us is going to present one. One of them was direct action and creative action, flash mobs, roving theater, dance, contact improvisation, and sit-ins, key places that we come back to regularly.
Okay, you guys each have a minute and a half.
So this topic is outreach and unifying, reaching out to a variety of communities through suggested health centers, drop-ins, churches, community centers, and opening up the long-standing activist community, continuing to open it up because we've seen that Occupy brings out a lot of new faces.
Thank you. Do a concrete project that makes everybody in Toronto go behind us, that creates jobs, fixes the environment, and makes the city more livable, which is make Transit City happen through Occupy Toronto. Continue to wake people up, raise consciousness, bring people back to their senses, and get the young and the old activists together.
One judge claimed we broke the law in the park. We say we should take legal action against our opponents who are constantly breaking the law.
Hear, hear.
So, to be in front of many judges, we will win some of those cases. We will get some compensation for what they have done, and we'll use that compensation to turn into the occupation movement.
We're from that table over there. Alicia, could you help us? So we had two columns, unifying principles, and to spread that. I'll do the unifying principles as fast as I can. Most affected should have the most say. Needs of the many outweigh the greed of the few. Need to get messages out. Mutual respect of and individual validation of rights and ideas. Solidarity, creativity. Common pursuit of meeting of needs, resources, and pursuit of well-being. You don't need permission to act. Public space is important. Mindfulness of safety, evaluating society by how we treat the worst off. Dissatisfaction with the system, not with the people. Language is important, not just taxpayers. And a needs-based economy like we have in St. James, not a greed-based economy.
Occupy public space and Occupy the TTC and the jobs being cut, such as, for example, Stop the Cuts rally tomorrow. Yeah. We need workshops and media training, education, work to divert energy away from consumption and into participation, such as International Buy Nothing Day, teach-in.
You're good out of time.
Okay, thanks.
From that table right over there, change up. This is our group. That's just not our group. Is that way? So we're
over our table. Use that as a hat.
Okay.
10 points.
First, build bridges. Is this on? Build bridges. Articulate the principles of the Occupy movement outside the board. 2, a movement that focuses on economic disparity and political economy. More singing and signs. 3, reorganize. Now that we're out of the park, we actually have more focused at action. The idea that we have new attention that we can bring forward. 4, the idea of the free school, which was developed at Occupy, expand that out of Occupy, decentralize that, the tactics and ideas, bring it out into the communities. 5, the idea of the three factors of change, the idea of motivation, simplicity, and the trigger. The Occupy movement keeping these 3 things in mind as they move forward. 6, the corporation is no longer a human. Spread that message. This thing is a radical idea, and above all else, all these things include one thing, the idea of engagement. Engagement in your communities, meaningful dialogue, and write a letter to say.
Okay, we didn't shoot our large piece of paper, that's fine. So we wanted to agree with people that are talking about having disparate spaces or kind of moving the spaces outwards and into communities that are not currently being represented here in the space. You need to be able to have the ability, first of all, like time differences in the morning, afternoon, evening, and in all those spaces, and you need community members that are willing to fill those spaces and take on those challenges.
3 major topics, and those were strategies, tactics, and symbols. We asked the question, do we want as a movement to be disruptive or simply visible, and that's not to take a side, or can we be both, and how do we do that? Symbols, I think they have to carry the essence of the movement without simplifying them. Symbols that are tools are good, that are spatial, communal, fun, emphasize the body. We talked about ropes, things that can be added to, just like the tents in the community, attaching ropes and using those to occupy things or pieces of fabric. In terms of tactics, occupying aggressive spaces. We need to expand and transform public spaces, but we also need to think about moving that transformation into the private sphere.
Ooh, that's loud. Go for it.
Okay, so we touched on 3 main ideas, which have been touched on as well. Settlements and reoccupations, outreach, and individual accountability. So concerning settlements, obtaining land, obtaining spots to have an actual sustainable village. And not only have that village, but have that village that connects to other villages and other villages, and we all have a network within those. And concerning that specifically, you can talk to Renee, he's at that table right there, if you have any connections to land or ideas that has anything to do with having a settlement. As far as outreach goes, we were thinking about satellite groups that say go into areas like maybe shelters or TDC or whatever, and facilitate, just in the same way we did at these roundtables, facilitate conversations within those groups. So if we had maybe 5 people or 3 or 2 or whatever that go to, they serve lunch at, for example, Sistering. They serve lunch, go in there and have that. Also, individual accountability, so how we can each do our own part. Some people are able to go and occupy a park, but some people, the biggest step for them is maybe, shopping at an individual store rather than Walmart, or maybe making a little change. Right. Anyway, thanks.
Hey, come on up here. We've got to keep moving, folks. Time is very precious because there's a drop dead time in this space, so. Please start.
First thing our group decided was we need to define and clarify what we are for and against. We need to restore equality, sustainability, and humanity. And 3, as a way forward, we're considering a physical space for constant presence that allows people to come to the Occupy community and then use of networks to reach out to our communities, physical and using both physical and digital networks. That's it.
Next.
Hello. First of all, this is beautiful, and you are all beautiful. If only City Council and House of Commons could run as effectively as what we have. Okay, 3 points, real fast. A vision for Occupy that has stated principles of what we want our world to be. 2, occupying education for the next generation. Our kids, our neighborhoods, another DX exchange here talking about the economic history and perhaps a glossary for economic dummies. The third part of that is a community outreach program that goes further out and coordinates with the neighborhood associations, gets out there, has GAs on the subway, starts occupying everything. We take it to them. We have the world at our disposal. Piggybacking on existing programs. Let us not reinvent the world, but we have to show up at the court. We may not agree with the game, we may not like the rules, but the fact is if we don't show up to the court, we need to be able to play there, okay? Last thing is, again, this is beautiful, and so are you all.
We're from the table over there, and we had 3 key issues that we talked about: accessibility of the Occupy movement, communication, and the focus and goals. So we wanted to talk about improve the accessibility of the website and the movement, maybe through meetups or other web tools, polling people to find out what they think about things, get a physical space, but also have decentralized community meetings that can provide a forum for education and explain to people what the 99% really is about. For communication, we thought of a poster idea. This is the face of Occupy with our faces there so that we could personalize the movement, using billboards to reclaim public spaces with stickers and other kinds of things. Especially with the Christmas commercial season coming up. We want to encompass all our supporters, make sure that we're always nonpartisan and we're open to our supporters, and that we're a we, not a you and them. We'd like to occupy spaces like our MP's office, and our councillor offices when we have a problem we fill, so that we can have public debates on them when they refuse to do so. And we had we just had a really great communications person at our table who has ideas about having web conferences.
How to continue Occupy movement beyond the park. 1, stay informed. 2, stay together. 3, stay active. Direct action. Portable information, marches to see kids and beach. Demonstration of Occupy model like the hub idea and House Halton. Perception committee, alternative communication for PR, perform a play or creative arts.
Create an issues committee so that we can discuss the sort of conflicting paradigms that people come up with in the GAs, and we need a list of committees and a list of volunteer positions so that we can create a central idea of what we are about and how we are participating. There's a meetup site that I created called Occupy-Toronto, and I invite everyone to go there. Focus on the barrier-free list of virtual access of information so that we can reach out to people at all different accessibility levels and create a unified message that we send to everybody at one time.
Perfect, thanks.
Thank you, everybody. It's wonderful. And our table down there was growing the values that we have embodied during the 5 weeks that we were there. Participatory, shared space, inviting, embracing, accepting, consensus, compassion, and all of these values that we make our own concretely by breaking bread. So that our assembly, General Assembly, have a very concrete breaking bread element. And that each one of us embody those values and maybe make potlucks and organize in our own little community similar assemblies and bring to the down the concrete elements. Now, where after tonight, well, the design exchange, all of the city halls, the libraries, the schools, as it has been said. Satellite, it is important to have a continuing way of having face-to-face community rather than just electronic and so on. So owning public spaces, we own them. And having each one of us use our individual passion to bring these whole values forward, whether it is urban farming or transforming militarism into building houses and those kind of things.
One quick thing, pass on some of that didn't get to share it, just keep going up. Make it Occupy Make Canada was something that didn't get shared, but the group wanted to share.
Hello again. Okay, so we're going to go quick because we have a lot of stuff. Part of our thing is how do we reach the 99%, the middle class that we really need, and we actually thought of a viral campaign or a non-traditional campaign. The creative concept is you are the 99%. The execution is why I occupy. Get Canadians to tell their stories, film them, throw them on YouTube. Get famous Canadians that come out and support the Occupy movement, like Paul Martin and David Suzuki, to tell us why they walk, why they occupy, and spread it like that. And just one other, just super quick thing that's completely unrelated and only my opinion. Think before you occupy. There's the two biggest demographics that use the TTC, people who are too poor to afford cars, and people who are environmentally friendly. Don't hurt the people we're helping. Choose where you occupy wisely.
One word, guys, kids.
Yeah.
Simple tools like lessons plans for teachers go after the new generation of teachers and make kids into makers, not consumers.
There's a bit of people on the planet who don't have enough food to eat. Let's grow food. We're an open source food community. Anybody interested in growing? It's called Occupy Gardens. You can contact me after, get on the mailing list. We're organizing a mass action for springtime, the world's greatest work week. We'll march by the thousands with shovels, seed bombs, plants, and compost, and plant food all over the city. Disperse 100 groups of 10, like a swarm, and integrate with local communities, schools, churches, occupy vacant lands, and cultivate nourishing spaces for everybody to grow for free.
Live now. Love informs virtually everything. New order of the world. Live now. Language informs virtually everything. New order of words.
I'd like to offer the symbol up as well. It's a heart and a mandala, a heart and a peace sign inside a mandala.
We're from that table over there. We talked about the culture of sustainability, so the importance of culture and image, creating narratives that we can kind of get behind What are the incentives for sustainability? Profit. Can we keep this mechanism and still fix things like in the box? Green industry, shifting language, redefining the economy, using models like in Egypt and Iceland, or like they use the online rewriting of their constitution and really inclusive. We talked about outreach. Tent setup, outreaches, media at key locations, Occupy Media with live stream, Flash occupies, who makes the decisions, online consensus building and volunteer networks, so volunteerism as community. Physical presence in communities is worthwhile. We talked about diversity in backgrounds. We have such a diversity in backgrounds, and we come from so many different spaces, but we can unite under foundational similarities, i.e. the current model of how our society runs is unable to address our concerns. The connections between groups we talked about making our message directed, accessible, and clear, and had two key uniting questions. One, what should the future be? And two, to what end?
That's fantastic. So, wow, thanks everybody. I think you should give each other and yourselves a huge... So I'm kind of doing this on the fly, so bear with me. But what I'm going to try and do is, reflect back to, first of all, there was an incredible sense of, I think, cohesion in the kinds of messages that came from all the tables. So that's a really important point. And so what I'm going to try and do is capture, some of the values that seem to be fundamental to why people are here in the room and what actually might connect others outside of this environment to the Occupy movement. And then I'm going to talk about some of the kind of key themes of next steps that seem to have come out of the dialogue. So I'm not going to be able to repeat every single phrase and word. What I'm going to try and do is sort of pull the things together. So here we are. So there is a really strong sense amongst all of you that this is very much about both self-motivation and caring about others. So it's kind of walking that balance between individual action and a really strong sense of community, accountability, the needs of many, and connected to this is this sense of caring for the most vulnerable. So the idea that a society that can't look after its most vulnerable, has to really reflect on itself and solve that problem amongst the other kinds of challenges. So that's a pretty important sense of core values. So, you can let me know if I'm really off base by whatever you do, and you can let me know if I'm on base by doing that thing. So that would be helpful. Let me know this whole language. So that seems to be a really important piece. And very much connected to that is the sort of notion of trying to really achieve a values-built movement that restores equality, sustainability, and humanity to the ways that people find solutions in a time of great economic challenge. So those seem to be really important core values to the way that the movement needs to move forward. There's also a whole set of ideas that really began to emerge over your dialogues about the need, and frankly from what happened with the Occupy reality of the month, of the 40 days and 40 nights, this sort of biblical analogy, but of building ideas about a new economy and actually putting those into action. So that it's not only about the issues with this economy and its crises, but also that there's need to model a new economy. And so the reason I'm going through this is, it's a values-driven movement, and it's really important to know what values get taken forward as we move into the sort of next phases. The idea again, this sort of physical quality of the movement. So, in a highly virtualized world, in a world of the internet, one of the really strong statements that the Occupy movement made is that we live in a physical world, and that space and public space and physicality, our bodies, somebody used the
how this movement understands itself. Again, we can link the ideas about economic inequality, the ways that those were foregrounded in the dialogues from the movement, to the sorts of action that people want. Clearly that's both something that's triggered by Occupy Happen, but it's also part of the solutions that Occupy needs to provide as it's moving into its next generation of activity. The notion of kind of being an intergenerational movement seems to have been very important in the ways that a number of people spoke. And then there was a kind of call from a number of people for realism, in other words, that whatever happens next has to have a sense of sequential order to it, whether that's multiple actions at once, but that there is a kind of future ahead, and that was expressed by many people, and that came out in the idea of keeping occupied, having a series of actions that led to other actions. So this notion that there's a timeline, you can have a timeline that goes like that, you can also have a timeline that has sort of many points of action around it, but that there needs to be that sense of a plan. And some sense from some people that, there is a bit of a closure from what happened in the park, and that there's somebody used the term re-energized, to now kind of take things forward. So, you'll see this sort of play out in the things that you're suggesting happen next. A lot of people said it's important to retain some of the bridges from what happened in the park, but also to build bridges and rebuild bridges with a larger community. And again, this notion of inclusion and accessibility, which connects into this notion of caring for the most vulnerable, but also it connects to the sense that there's very many people, both locally and beyond, who are impacted by some of the issues that are happening right now in the world. And then the other thing that came out very strongly is that there's a methodology that emerged during Occupy, which happened during the physical occupation and happened to some extent today, the design exchange, which is, a way of working together, listening to each other. And what was great about tonight is there was a kind of efficiency to that. So sometimes one thinks about inclusive processes as being very, very, very dragged down by time. But if you think about what happened tonight, and you think about people actually, believe it or not, sticking to 1.5 minutes mostly, it's pretty efficient. So that sharing is a process that can continue to happen. So just going to try and move along here to some of the things that people proposed would be the next steps here, and where there was a lot of agreement. So there was the term education just happened constantly. This sense that this is very much a movement about educating, about taking a set of messages out, whether it's about what's propelled, society into various kinds of points of crisis or conflict, but very much also about what the values need to be to move to another step. And so this notion about a mindset that's driven by education, and education needing to happen in both formal locations and informal locations. So there's a whole kind of list of possibilities for education and methods to bring that education to the next step. So those included, and people said self-education, so again this notion about, taking responsibility for yourself, but also educating others seems to be, continual within the dialogue. So this idea that education is very much about building, a set of tools. People use the word tools for people to be able to be active in the world and to teach each other and listen to each other. Whether the sites are formal sites like libraries and schools, public spaces, and very much online. I'll talk about that in a moment because there was a lot of dialogue actually about how to use the internet and the online environment. So this idea about it being a movement very much in the next phase, it's about education. This notion about occupism, which I guess is a term that was born tonight, and that occupism is about very much, I think an important kind of point of warning that somebody said is to choose where to occupy carefully, that, this is about a sort of strategic sense of who needs to be brought along. So there was a big emphasis on expanding the 99% who would hear the messages and care about this movement, and ideas about being able to have, again, many people said there needs to be hub, a kind of day site, a place that has a physical quality to it where people could gather. And then this notion that came out a lot, tied to education, tied to keeping a kind of action sense of a kind of nomadic movement that has a set of presences that is present in different locations. And again, very tied to this notion of neighborhood, to go to where people are, to go to municipalities, to look at, again, these public spaces, community centers, health centers, etc., and to build bridges with people who are in those neighborhoods and communities who are part of that larger majority who are also facing a set of issues. So again, you know, the idea of taking a methodology and sharing it, building bridges, a kind of nomadic sense of keeping the energy moving and doing it quite tactically and carefully, bringing the ideas to the mainstream, and also inviting a dialogue, as I think the Design Exchange has tried to do with the 1%. So, you know, to look at where those bridges are. Other key issues are the idea of creating a brand. So there's this notion, very strong notion that came from people about the importance of having symbols that represent the movement, that are fun, that have a sense of place in the body, that are the face of the movement. Lots of ideas, art, theater, stickers, but there's clearly a need for a branding group, you know, a group that can pull together the cultural presence of the movement. There was another idea that was one group's with the idea of legal action that could actually come from the Occupy movement around public space and public rights. And then the need for some kind of organization that would be able to kind of bring this forward. And finally, there was this whole conversation about food that was really cool. So the idea of having to break bread together, urban gardens, an urban food movement, and grouping all of those pieces. So those really are your go-forwards. That's your philosophy. Those are the things that you care about. Lots and lots of agreement here. And there is a whole set of strategies here that you've agreed on tonight together as, you know, a group of 250 people in the room. So great work. We're right on time. I'm going to hand over now. And Misha, I guess you can talk about next steps, right?
Thank you so much, Sarah. That's amazing to see all that.
So, a point of process.
With all respect, thank you. I think we will be more productive for the next meetings. Instead of 1.5 minutes for people to talk, maybe 2 minutes and a shorter because I think that the energy was different where we were sharing everything and where it was just
Let's just see a quick temperature check. Vibe check? Oh, mic check, okay. There was, for process, it might be better in the future to have more report backs and less the synthesis because of the energy from that. Thank you so much for that feedback. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for feedback. We've got a very short period of time, so I want to just keep moving it along. I would love to use the people's mic, but as was expressed earlier, there are accessibility issues with that when we are in an enclosed space with loud people. Moving right along, what I really wanted to share is something that has been incredible this past night. What we have seen this evening is a whole bunch of people who just kind of walked into the Design Exchange. I don't think you all knew necessarily what was going to happen. And what I saw was a whole load of ideas come forward. And people are now carrying these ideas within them. So what I want to encourage everybody is that these are great ideas. I love all the work that has happened here. And so many times during this occupation, somebody's come up to me and said, I've had this great idea, you should do it. And what I want to say right now is these are amazing ideas, and it's time for you guys to do them.
It's often hard to actualize these ideas just as an individual, and I know I personally need friends and companions
and to further and progress ideas with. And on that note, I just want to bring your attention back to this sheet that was kind of available on your table, especially on the end with the what are some resources. Specifically, the second one on the list, so the Occupy Toronto Outreach Google site. It's a forum that still needs to be progressed, and we still need web designers to make it more accessible. But right now, it's a really fantastic forum in which there's forum space to ask questions and progress ideas together, calendars where we can put those outreach ideas actually on paper and kind of make sure that others know that it's happening. And also further resources to explain kind of how to have a meeting and how to bring the kind of discussion we had here tonight to your communities. So I just want to encourage you all again on a practical level to actually actualize these ideas by connecting with others who share the same kind of focuses.
So we're coming to the end of the night, and I really need to shout out a whole bunch of thank yous because this has been absolutely phenomenal. So first I want to thank the Design Exchange. They've been absolutely amazing. I want to thank Aiden, who helped with this awesome Twitter role, as you may know. We are currently in the former Toronto Stock Exchange. This is a very different stock we're trading now. And I want to thank everybody who came out tonight, because I've been racking my brains on how we can get everybody involved. And so we had designers coming out, and thank you so much to the designers who helped with this. And we had people from the facilitation team come out in huge numbers. This is, if we could have had a facilitation team meeting, we would have gotten more done than we've ever done. Because I've never seen everybody here in one room. So that's really amazing. And ultimately, thank you to everybody. I'm sure I'm missing some thank yous because as this is on the fly, I'm just remembering it. Of course, we have to thank Sarah Diamond for this amazing, amazing harvest. And Barbara Crow, who helped us enormously in getting this to happen. And it seems like we've got an announcement from the crowd. We have a poem that somebody has offered to read called Occupy. So I'm going to call that up, and then we will conclude. And then we have a couple of announcements about how the Occupy movement is already kind of moving forward. So let's hear this wonderful poem from our friend Chad. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for all being here. This poem is called Occupy. No wonder. I occupy. You occupy. We all occupy our planet. So what is the big deal if some occupy a part of the square? Why are the mayors up in arms? Why bother with evictions? They cared little about the homeless before. Now that some of them are in the tent, they want to evict. When the Wall Street bigwigs failed, they got a donation of billions. Maria. When the homeless are freezing, they speed away in their limousines. Police are ready with batons, tear gases, and tasers. Judges are ready with decisions to evict. Constitutional rights of free expression and assembly are denied. For what? So that law and order may prevail. Homeless may go back to where they came from, to freeze in the dark over the subway vent. Individually, they may sit in a cardboard box. Together in the park, no way.
all occupy the planet. So what is the big deal if some occupy a park or a square? They occupies for direct democracy. Town occupies for government transparency. Sangi occupies for systemic issues within our society. Nancy occupies to meet the natives of the land. Laura occupies to build the community library. Chai occupies to help in the community kitchen. Prem occupies because he believes in a better world is possible. Hasina occupies for demolishing boundaries in your head. Tom occupies for warmth of the tent. Furry Fox occupies to light the sacred fire. Violet occupies to video the General Assembly. Maria occupies to feed her kids a warm meal. They all occupy today and not wait for the next election. 99% must act now, right now. So that the 1% does not evict us on the election date. I occupy, you occupy, we all occupy our planet. So what is the big deal if some occupy a park or a square? Now you can repeat this. 99% must act now, right now. So the 1% do not evict us on election day. Thank you.
Before we close, I just have a few announcements from audience members. And maybe if you have further points, if you could make your way to the front. Okay. So firstly, there was a suggestion put out that if you could please write down any suggestions for the next event like this on the sheets in front of you on the tables, so we can kind of, it's a form of self-reflection as we keep going, so we can continue this process. Second of all, it was requested that I make note of one of the tweets up here that Occupy Kingston, which is one of the few spaces in Canada that still has a physical occupation site, has been with us the whole night tonight and has been watching and following us. Some events that are coming up tomorrow is Stop the Cut Rally. It's starting at noon in Moss Park. Please come and show your support. And on Sunday, we're still having our Occupy Community Outreach Day, which will be happening back in St. James Park at 2 p.m. I'm sure there are any more announcements.
There's one last announcement, which is what's going to happen with all of this. All I can say is stay tuned. We pulled this together in 4 days and we're in a very big rush. So we're looking to find a way to synthesize this. We asked you to bring the email lists up to the front, and also the harvests are there, and we're going to see how we can really move this thing forward strongly, because what we can see from this is everybody is very interested in continuing this conversation.
So to close our... Okay, there is, final last announcement. There is a General Assembly after this on the TD steps. Yeah. Very interesting. And to close this inspiring evening together, I would like to invite Tim back up to the front. And if we could all just give him such an incredibly warm thank you for helping us cope. Sorry, before we get to one final announcement, if all the facilitators and the designers could meet in the corner over here afterwards, that'd be really appreciated.
So I'll keep it short this week. You guys did incredible work tonight. I really appreciate you coming. This was a risk in many ways for into something that was so contemporary and so real. I hope you felt that it was meaningful. I hope that it helped advance things. And I hope that we keep things civil, happy, and fun. Good luck.
It was a pleasure, as always. You want to find me, Gerald Parker at Rogers.com. Just find the Institute of Canadian Justice, and you'll find me. All roads. Gerald Parker at Rogers.com.
Log out?
Just look up the Institute of Canadian Justice.
I can't tell you.
On my name, yes. Yeah, you got that.
Is he throwing it at someone? Huh? Is he throwing it at someone? The feet. Is he throwing the feet at someone? Just throwing the feet? Like, the feet. Where are we throwing the feet? Huh? Where are we throwing the feet? You should put it down. Oh, I feel bad. Here, I'll take it.
Facilitator! Bro, no. We want to come in, give you our opinion.